Imagine a city, vibrant and bustling, known for its stunning ice festivals. A place where art and culture intertwine with a rich, diverse history. This is Harbin, in northeast China, a city that today stands as a testament to human creativity and resilience. But beneath the glittering facade of ice and snow, and indeed, beneath the very ground we walk on, lies a chilling secret. A secret so dark, so profoundly disturbing, that it challenges our understanding of humanity itself. Because in this very region, during a time of global turmoil, an unimaginable horror unfolded, a place where science was twisted into an instrument of unspeakable cruelty, where human beings were reduced to mere objects of experimentation. This isn't a work of fiction, a dystopian nightmare conjured from the depths of imagination. This is the true, terrifying history of Unit 731. And what you're about to discover will make you question everything you thought you knew about the darkest corners of human ambition. Stay with us, because the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, demands to be heard. To understand Unit 731, we must first set the stage. The year is 1936. The world is on the precipice of its deadliest conflict, and in East Asia, Japan's imperial ambitions are rapidly expanding. They had already invaded and occupied Manchuria, establishing the puppet state of Manchuria. This vast, resource-rich territory, with its harsh continental climate, scorching summers and brutally cold, dry winters, became the unlikely backdrop for one of history's most heinous scientific endeavors. Unit 731, officially known as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kuomintang Army, was anything but. It was a top-secret biological and chemical warfare research and development unit, established by the Imperial Japanese Army. Its headquarters were nestled in the Pingfang district of Harbin, a sprawling complex spanning over 6 square kilometers, housing more than 150 buildings. This wasn't a small, clandestine operation. It was an industrial-scale facility, designed for mass production of biological weapons, and chillingly, for mass human experimentation. Under the command of Lieutenant General Shiro Ishii, a microbiologist and military officer, Unit 731 operated with absolute impunity. Its true purpose was shrouded in layers of deception, hidden behind the guise of public health initiatives. But the reality was far more sinister. Ishii and his team were dedicated to developing the most devastating biological weapons imaginable, using living human beings as their test subjects. The scale of this operation, the sheer audacity of its secrecy, and the horrific nature of its activities remain almost incomprehensible, even today. It was a dark chapter in history, where the pursuit of scientific knowledge was perverted into an instrument of unimaginable suffering. What happened within the walls of Unit 731 defies easy comprehension. The victims, referred to chillingly as Maruta, Japanese 4 logs, were stripped of their humanity long before the experiments began. They were not prisoners of war, not criminals in the traditional sense, but often kidnapped civilians. Men, women, children, even infants, from China, Korea, Russia, and other parts of Asia. They were seen as expendable, mere biological material for scientific inquiry. Imagine the brutal Manchurian winters, where temperatures plummet to -20, -30, even -40 degrees Celsius, a place where the very air can freeze your breath. Unit 731 exploited this harsh environment. One of their horrific experiments involved frostbite testing. Victims were left outdoors in sub-zero temperatures, their limbs exposed, then thawed using various methods to study the effects. This wasn't just about understanding frostbite. It was about weaponizing the cold, seeing how quickly a human body could succumb to nature's most unforgiving elements. But the cold was just one tool in their arsenal. Unit 731's primary focus was biological warfare. They experimented with plague, cholera, anthrax, typhoid, and dysentery. They would infect prisoners with these deadly pathogens, then observe the progression of the disease, often without any medical intervention. Some were subjected to vivisections, surgical operations performed on living subjects, without anesthesia, to study the effects of disease on internal organs. The rationale? To understand how to make these diseases more potent, more transmissible, more devastating to an enemy population. The depravity extended to pressure chambers, where victims were subjected to extreme low pressure conditions, simulating high altitudes, until their eyes popped out. They tested weapons, too, using live human targets to gauge the effectiveness of grenades and flamethrowers. They even injected animal blood, horse urine, and seawater into victims to study the effects on the human circulatory system. The sheer variety and barbarity of these experiments are almost impossible to reconcile with the concept of scientific research. How could seemingly educated individuals, doctors, and scientists participate in such atrocities? This brings us to a chilling insight into human psychology. The power of dehumanization and cognitive dissonance. By labeling their victims as logs, they created a psychological distance, allowing them to bypass their moral compass. the intense pressure from a totalitarian regime, the promise of scientific advancement, and the belief in racial superiority all contributed to a terrifying normalization of evil. It wasn't just about the experiments, it was about the systematic dismantling of empathy, turning human beings into data points. While the natural world around Harbin teemed with unique life, like the elusive Amur leopard, one of the rarest big cats on Earth, or the migratory birds that traversed thousands of miles across the vast Siberian plains. Within Unit 731, life was systematically extinguished. The contrast is stark. The boundless, indifferent beauty of nature against the calculated, deliberate cruelty of man. This was not science for the betterment of humanity, but science for its destruction, a perversion of knowledge that left an indelible stain on history. The scale of the suffering, the sheer number of lives lost, estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands, directly and indirectly, is a testament to the depths of this depravity. And yet, this was only part of the story. What happened after the war, and the shocking deals made, is perhaps even more unsettling. As World War II drew to a close and the horrors of the Holocaust began to emerge, another dark secret lay buried in the frozen earth of men. When the Soviet Union declared war on Japan in August 1945 and swept into Manchuria, they quickly uncovered the remnants of Unit 7, a vast laboratory of death. 12 Unit 731 researchers were captured by the Soviets and put on trial in Khabarovsk in 1949. They received relatively light sentences, ranging from 2 to 25 years in labor camps, in exchange for the information they possessed about biological warfare. But the Soviet Union wasn't the only superpower interested in Unit 731's grim harvest of data. The United States, too, was keenly aware of the unit's existence and its research. In a shocking and controversial move, the U.S. secretly granted immunity from war crimes prosecution to Unit 731's leadership, including General Shiro Ishii and other top researchers. In exchange, the Americans gained exclusive access to the vast trove of research data, the gruesome findings from years of human experimentation. This was a deal struck in the shadows, a Faustian bargain driven by the burgeoning Cold War. The motivation for this cover-up was clear: a desperate race to gain an advantage in the nascent biological arms race against the Soviet Union. The U.S. wanted to prevent this invaluable, albeit horrifying, data from falling into Soviet hands. The irony, however, is profound. The information obtained from Unit 731 was later deemed not significantly valuable, as the U.S. biological warfare program had already surpassed Unit 731's capabilities by 1943. The human cost of this decision, the denial of justice for thousands of victims, was immense, all for intelligence that ultimately proved to be of limited utility. This episode raises profound ethical questions about the pursuit of scientific knowledge at any cost, and the moral compromises nations are willing to make in the name of national security. It highlights a disturbing truth, that in the geopolitical chess game, human lives can become mere pawns, and justice can be sacrificed for perceived strategic advantage. The cover-up of Unit 731's atrocities allowed many perpetrators to escape accountability, to live out their lives without facing the consequences of their actions. Some even went on to have successful careers in medicine and science in post-war Japan. This lack of public reckoning for so long contributed to a historical amnesia, a silence that only amplified the suffering of the victims and their families. The legacy of this cover-up extends beyond the immediate aftermath of the war. It shaped the trajectory of biological warfare research, and perhaps more importantly, it left a deep scar on the collective memory of the nations involved. The silence surrounding Unit 731 for decades was a second injustice, a perpetuation of the dehumanization that began within its walls. But history, like nature, has a way of revealing its hidden truths, even if it takes time. And the efforts to bring this dark chapter to light continue to this day. Despite decades of silence and denial, the truth about Unit 731 could not remain buried forever. In recent years, significant efforts have been made to unearth the full extent of these atrocities and to ensure that the victims are remembered. The former site of Unit 731 in Pingfang Harbin has been transformed into a museum, a solemn testament to the horrors that transpired there. It serves as a vital educational center, drawing visitors from around the world to confront this dark chapter of history. Historians and activists continued to meticulously piece together the fragmented evidence, poring over declassified documents and survivor testimonies. Their work is crucial in challenging historical revisionism and ensuring that the lessons of Unit 731 are not forgotten. Lawsuits have been filed by victims and their families seeking recognition and compensation. Though often met with legal and political obstacles, these ongoing struggles highlight the deep wounds left by the unit's actions and the persistent need for accountability. The legacy of Unit 731 extends beyond its immediate victims and perpetrators. It serves as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked scientific ambition, the perversion of medical ethics, and the catastrophic consequences when humanity is stripped away in the name of national interest or scientific progress. It underscores the critical importance of international laws and ethical guidelines in scientific research, reminding us that certain lines must never be crossed, regardless of the perceived benefits. The story of Unit 731 is a powerful reminder that history, no matter how painful, must be confronted and understood to prevent its repetition. It is a call to vigilance, a plea for empathy, and a demand for justice that echoes through the decades. So, what can we take away from the horrifying history of Unit 730? Perhaps the most surprising truth isn't about the brutality itself, but about the chillingly thin veil that separates civilization from barbarity. It reminds us that the capacity for unimaginable cruelty doesn't reside solely in monsters, but can emerge when ordinary people, driven by ideology, fear, or a warped sense of duty, allow themselves to dehumanize others. The scientists of Unit 731 were not uneducated brutes. Many were highly intelligent, respected individuals within their fields. This begs the question: under what circumstances could such a perversion of ethics happen again? Consider this. The very same scientific advancements that can save lives, cure diseases, and expand our understanding of the universe can also be twisted into instruments of destruction. The knowledge gained from Unit 731, however ill-gotten, contributed to the understanding of biological agents. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that knowledge itself is neutral. Its application is entirely dependent on the moral compass of those who wield it. The story of Unit 731 is not just a historical footnote, it is a timeless warning. It challenges us to remain vigilant, to question authority, to uphold ethical principles in all endeavors, and to never, ever forget the profound value of every human life, because the echoes of history, no matter how faint, serve as a constant reminder. The greatest horrors are not always found in the fantastical, but in the terrifying depths of what humanity is capable of, both good and evil. What will you do with this knowledge? How will you ensure that such a dark chapter is never repeated? The answer, perhaps, lies within each of us.